Greetings, pilgrims, and welcome to another episode of the Polygon Pilgrimage, and we are back, and we are working on the beginnings of our menu setup. So this menu is going to follow kind of the Battle Royale, specifically more like the Fortnite style opening. So let's take a look at what we have first, and then we'll talk about it. So right away, I'm just going to hit play on the game scene, and we'll talk about what we see here. So we've got our 4 heroes all set up, all on their little platforms, and as you can see, they are randomly picking different animations to play. Now, I do have a limited set of animations right now, so there's going to be some overlap, and I'm still working out, and I'm open to ideas for better randomization, but I'll show you how I achieve this randomization, and it takes some time to kind of get through the whole thing here, like a minute, 2 minutes or so. You'll see that it's picking different animations, and I'm going to go over everything with you guys, how to create the background here, what assets I use for that, how to get animations from Mixamo, how to bring them into Unity, a little bit of coding we have to do to kind of randomize things up, and then we're just going to hit the ground running with it, okay? So here's our menu, and we'll have our buttons and everything. And if I open up our canvas here, you see there is a reference image. And if I take this reference image and I bring up the opacity, you see it looks very familiar, right? So all the characters are on their little platforms, and I've got everything in the right place. Now, this is mimicking the idle animation at the menu. And yes, later we will talk about if you have like an emote assigned, you can hit a button to play a specific animation, which will interrupt these. That's not such a big deal, but randomizing everything is what I wanted to show you today. So let's take a look at our scene and figure out what we need to build. So here we have our environment, so it has to be some kind of post-apocalypse, battle, war-torn, whatever, right? So we've got that going on. We've got a really cool skybox, which is providing some nice ambient background lighting to us. And then we've got the camera just sitting here and our 4 heroes here. And this is the standard model, the third-person character, the Ethan model that comes with Unity. And what I've done is just ripped out the guts of it, and we're just using the model and the setup with the rig, and we're applying some custom animations. And as you can see, there are 4 heroes. So each player here, player 1, player 2, player 3, player 4. And then they have a player 1, 2, 3, and 4 base. Right now the base doesn't do anything. In the future we are going to do an animation on that. When you hover over the player, it'll do an animation just like it does in Fortnite and other games, no problem. Then we have our world here, and this is just an empty game object that is holding all the decorative bits to this. Now, I'm not going to go too far into terrain generation today because it is a more complex topic, but I wanted to just let you know that this terrain is quite small. So if I come over here and select the terrain, you'll see now my paintbrush here because I was painting most recently. If I go to my settings here and we look at this, the terrain is quite small. It's only a 20 by 20, and I just wanted to make it a small little area here. And the one trick that I did was, you'll see these stretched lines here. So what I did was I brought all the terrain up in order to make then a dip down here. So there's a tool right away you can use where you can set the height, right here, the second paint height. You can give it an amount, or what you can do is here, it'll tell you, if you click to paint, or you can hold shift and click to sample. So what I did was once I got these at the right position, I brought the terrain up to this height, and then you can sample. Oops, that's not the correct. Hold shift and click. There you go. Sample, and here you'll see the height is automatically set, 0.9995. So now if I were to click here, it's going to bring that all the way up. I have to hit flatten to that height. I don't want to do that right now, but that will bring it up to that height. So what I did was I brought everything up and then brought this area down by going back to my normal terrain editing, and here it says hold shift to lower, and now I can click to lower the terrain down. And you can see here the lowest it gets is 0, which is where this is at now. So there we go. So that's how I did that. Then the rest of this is just clever lighting and some rocks. Now the rocks are part of the Rock and Boulders 2 pack, and I will provide links in the description, but here it is. Rock and Boulders 2, and you can add that to your free assets. It's free, and it's a very nice rock pack. I've used it for multiple things. The skybox is not free, but I want to share it with you anyway. Again, link will be in the description, but here it is. This is the Night Skybox Part 1, and this is very good. It's only $10 or $8 if you're on Plus or Pro, and this is a great setup, and he has other parts here. Very good stuff there. So that's what I'm using for the skybox, but you can choose anything. You could even make it black if you wanted to. Now for our camera here, let's take a look at our camera. So if I select main camera, you'll notice that one of the things I did to make this easier on myself is that it's a main camera, and I've done almost nothing to it. The transform has been zeroed out, so we're at 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 for rotation, and it's just pointing forward. And then I put everything else in front of the camera. And the way I got everything lined up nicely, excuse me, is if you create a canvas, so just right click UI canvas right there, and then right click onto the canvas and create a raw image. Then you get this raw image. I named it reference image. And I just took a screenshot of the image I was trying to match and threw it in there. And I said, make sure that it's 1920 by 1080. I set my canvas to say screen space overlay, scale with screen size, 1920 by 1080, match width or height, match width, 100 pixels per unit. That's just kind of my standard. I've done that in other videos, so you can check that out. And I just put the image in here, and right now I've put the opacity all the way down to 0, but if you bring it all the way up, and then we look at our game view, this is what we're matching. So here are the 4 heroes here, and we have the characters set up. And then if you pull down this now, you can see that I've matched those cylinders to approximately where they're at, and these heroes are in about the same position. And if you look, all it is a little bit of terrain where they're standing, and then it drops off, and then you have any kind of background you want, really. So for us, our background is just this little fiery pit, some boulders, and it's an ominous dark sky. I think it looks pretty cool. So we create an empty game object, we call it world. And again, I put this at the origin just to make sure that everything is lined up properly. And then just go to town decorating your scene. So I made my terrain and just push and pull and make it all set up. And then I use the rock pack. So here's a couple of small rocks behind them and some big ones. And the rocks have a special shader which helps them to kind of combine with each other and blend nicely. So I just, rotated them and put them in here. It's several of them. You can see there's several groups here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 groups there. Just rotate them around until I was happy with the camera view. Then I had some kind of background that, fades off. We don't have to see the back of it. It's fine. And then I just threw the lighting in there. The lighting is from the fire pack that comes with Unity. It's a part of the standard assets. There's some fires and things you can get. And so I put a couple of the fires down. So there's some small ones with some smoke. And then there's some particle effects. And then just using the lighting from that fire. So if you look carefully at that, you'll see the sparks kind of floating around the scene. See, there you go. Some of the heat sparks there and some of the haze. And you can see the fire just lipping up in the background. I just think it looks really cool. It gives us a really nice little setup there. Okay, so now that we have that done, how do we go about creating our characters here? So I'll step through it with you. If we go to our standard assets, so let's find those. So standard assets, I have them in a different folder, pardon me. Here we are. Standard assets, characters, third person, and then we want the prefab. And it doesn't really matter which one you choose because we're going to rip out the stuff out of it. But you can get these by going to Assets, Import Package, Characters. And if you don't see that here, that means you have to go to the asset store and get the standard assets as part of Unity. My installs always come with them, so I don't know. Some people have been having trouble with that, but just my installs come with them. So I'm going to drag this character into the world. So this will be player 5, which doesn't really exist in the games, but that's okay. Turn around, player 5. You're kind of derpy. There we go. So here's player 5, and he's off screen still. So he'll steal the show a little bit. He'll come over here and get in everybody's way. There we go. So player 5 right here. He's a jerk. Move him back a little bit. I don't want him to be. There you go. Not so much a jerk anymore. Good. So we have this new character here, but right away you'll notice that he has a whole bunch of stuff on here that we don't really need. If we look at the other characters, they have almost nothing, just the animator and custom script that we're going to make. So I'm going to remove all this other crap. So I'm going to remove this rigid body, and you'll notice it's going to complain. It's going to say, I can't do this because one of these other scripts depends on this. So that's okay. We just find the right order of removing things. So I'm going to try to remove this. Nope. It says I can't because of this one, so it's this one. The third person user control, we'll remove that first. Now we can remove this guy. Now we can remove the rigid body. Now we can remove the capsule collider. So really this is like just purely a visual of this model now. You could walk right through it. It's not going to do anything. It does have an animator still, so that's the key. So now if you look at our other characters here, they're all using a different controller. So real quickly, the way that characters work with animations, the animator is this component, which is this whole thing right here, which says, I'm going to tell you how to do animation stuff for this model. The controller is what animations get played when and where, and the avatar is how do the bones line up with the skin, with the actual vertices of the model, so it knows how to animate it properly, right? So this guy still has his original avatar, and this is fine. We're using that same avatar, but look, the controller is changing. So this controller is looking for stuff from a standard third-person animator. We don't want that. We have this new main menu character one that we made. Let's take a look at that. What is that? So if I scroll this over, whoop, here's what it looks like. So we got a couple of things. You may recognize this from when we did the gun stuff, so this will be very easy for you guys. So you need two parameters up here, an animation random, which is a float, and a B start playing, which is a checkbox, okay? Now from our entry, we're going to create a blank or an empty, I'm going to call it random choice, and we're going to assign a script here, but we'll get to that in a second. And then essentially this is going to go to 3 possible branches. And so these are all animations, and we'll get to that in a second. You'll notice that our conditions here are very complicated, it looks like, but it's not really. So the conditions are just the numbering schema like we did before with the guns, and we just want to make sure that the B start playing is true. Now the B start playing is a Boolean because we're going to try to offset and randomize these things a little bit. So follow with me here. It's really not that hard. So we're going to go into our menu, into our animations, and here's where we're going to get all our animations. So we don't have those yet. Pretend we don't have those. We need an animation controller, which is this. So we're going to right click and say create animation controller, just like this. Name it main menu. I named it main menu character, sorry. And then you'll see that it looks like this and it's blank. It'll look kind of like this and this will be blank. So you'll have an any state, you'll have an entry, you'll have an exit, and that's about it. So we need to create our parameters. So you can just do that by clicking plus here. You need one float and one Boolean. Name your float animation random. Name your Boolean B start playing. Capital S, capital P. Then over here, I'm going to create that empty state. Right click, create state empty. And you'll notice that it's going to have an animation applied to it up here, a motion of neutral idle. So that's the first animation they all play is just an idle animation. Then our conditions are going to be if, so we have a couple of these things, between 0 and 2, which is what? 1. Between 1 and 3, which is 2. Or between 2 and 4, which is 3. So it's going to pick basically 1, 2, or 3. Which way do we go? Now you could expand this to be 5, 6, 7, 8, 20 million, however you want. And that would help this become more random, okay? So now, once we've chosen a number and it's between one of these 3, if it's between 0 and 2, which means it's 1, and we're allowed to start playing our animation, we're going to go here. Once we're done playing this, there is no condition. We're just going to go straight to here, straight to here, straight to here. No condition here either. We're going to go right back down to neutral idle 1 again. So you notice neutral idle, it's the same animation at the beginning and end. Now, here the difference is you'll notice that we have this script over here that says new random animation chain. And that's the script that we're going to call that's essentially going to randomize this number so that we pick a random one of these. Now when we reach here, it's going to run this code, and then this condition is empty. It's going to come back up to here. And you'll see here it's going to pick a new random animation chain. I don't think I need this in both positions, but I just kind of left it anyway. So it picks a random number and then it picks a random number. So it doesn't really matter. You could remove one or the other. It doesn't really matter. And it will go up to the top with that new number, 1 through 3, pick it, and then go down another one of these branches. And that's the real magic here. It's going to pick random, go through. So they're all picking a random number. So in theory, they should all be at different points. In practice, they do tend to all be doing the same thing at some points because there's only 3 options. So that's why I'm saying for your project, if you can expand this, then you'll get a lot more. Okay? So we have this idea, but we need our animations in here. So how do we do that, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Mixamo. So here, I've got Mixamo up, and I'll show you. Mixamo.com. If you don't know, this is a godsend of a website. So in the top here, we're searching for animations. I'm going to search for idle. And I found this one we're going to apply. This guy, little boxing, whatever. So I like this animation. Cool. Download it. I'm going to choose FBX for Unity. And I'm not going to mess with anything else. I'm just going to say download. I think I don't need anything else. Yeah. Download. There we go. So that's downloading this animation. And it's an FBX file. And there we go. We got 7 seconds left. So I'm going to move it over to the other screen. Okay. So he's all set. Actually, I need to grab that. Come here. No, it's not letting me do it there. That's fine. Okay, so he's all set. So now I'm going to right click here and we need to import that animation file. So I need to go to my downloads. I need to look for the thing that just showed up. So let me go to do this a different way. Details, date. swat idle. There we go. So this is a new file I just downloaded, so I'm going to import that into Unity. And this is the entire model. It's the model plus the animation and everything. You can see it down here. If I make this a little bigger. There he is. So right to left, we're going to go through all of these. Materials, we don't care. Animation, we do care. It's called idle. Let's call this punching idle, just so we know what it is. And if we hit play here, you'll see him doing his little thing here. Very cool. It's working. Let's go to rig, and instead of generic, we're going to choose humanoid and say apply. So we need to tell Unity that this animation and this model was designed for a humanoid character. And for the model, we don't care. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to open up the animation here. So you see him here. I'm going to click this to expand, and these are all the parts that came in this FBX file. So it's the geometry, it's the rigging, it's the textures, it's everything. All we care about is this guy. This guy is the actual motion, the actual animation for our purposes. So I'm going to single click it, and I'm going to hit Control D. And that's going to make a duplicate of just that part of it. But you notice now it's out here. So I'm click and drag this, and I want to put this up one into my animations folder. So I'm going out of my raw FBX up one chain to my animations folder. And there it is, punching idle. And you can see here it is, and I can play the animation, make sure it's still working. Very good. Okay. So that's all set. So for our new guy here, we're going to do that for him. Right? So he has the wrong controller right now. So let's make a duplicate of the main menu controller. And we're going to call this main menu character 1 is fine. We're going to call this main punch. So this is the main punching guy. So select him, and we're going to replace that with that. Very good. So now we're going to make him a little different, and he's not actually going to do most of this, but we're just going to make everything punching. So I think you can do this. You cannot do that. So we're just going to make it straight up punch. So it's going to pick. It's not even going to pick. We're just going to go right to punch. So to do our punch, we're going to grab our punch from down here. Where did it go? Neutral punching. Drag and drop. There you go. So that's how you get the animations into here. Okay, so now I'm going to right click, make transition to this. And I'm going to say set this as the default. So now from entry, it's going to go right to punching. Okay, and that's all this one's going to do. So this one's going to be a little different, that it's not actually doing the code, but I wanted to show you how to get animations into here. You just click and drag. And there you go. So once you do that Control D and you have all your animations in one spot, you just drag and drop them into here. We don't actually need those, so we're good. So this guy's just going to punch forever. So now if we just play and take a look at it, everyone else is going to do their thing and he's just going to punch away. So he's ready to go constantly. Okay? So if you want that to happen, that's fine. And you notice that he stopped. We need to set it as looping. But if you want that, that's fine. But if you want to do this stuff, we have to do a little bit more. Okay. So we'll go back to punching, and if you want to make it loop, select the animation here and click loop time. Now it's a looping animation. So now we'll be all set if I hit play. Hit play, and he'll just loop forever, boxing ready. There you go. So if that's all you want, you're good. If you want to do the rest of this stuff, let's keep going. So back to our main menu one. You'll notice that we had some code in these places. So let's take a look at the two places we have code. The one place is down here where it says new random animation chain. Now you'll notice that on some of these you can say add behavior. And what is that? By add behavior, it's asking me to either add a new script or add this script that I've already written and we've already applied. So for you, you're going to have to say add behavior, new script, call it new random anim chain is what I called it, all together like this. And we'll take a look at that code in a second. So that code is going to go on the animation here in the animation controller. Okay? The other code is going to go on our actual characters. So if we collapse this and take a look at player 1, so he has an animator, and then he has this animation called delay animations. And they all have that delay animations, all of them, except for our new guy who's, as we mentioned, he's a jerk and all he wants to do is fight people. So on each of these characters, they're going to have this delay animation script, and in their animation controller, which they all share the same one, in their animation controller on this animation, or on this one, I did it on both, and you need to add a behavior and add a script there. Okay, so the final part, let's look at the two scripts. They're nice and easy, don't you worry. So the first animation is this one, the new random animation chain. It's going to come up and it's going to look really weird. it's going to look like this, and it's going to say state machine behavior. What the hell is this? So a brief history lesson. This is a state machine. You're moving between states. If you're standing still waiting for the bus and then you start walking, you've now changed state from standing still to walking. It's a state. If you fall asleep, you're from conscious to unconscious. So by changing our states, this whole thing is called a state machine. Okay? So for the state machine, we're changing the behavior. And by doing that, we have to do a couple of things. So here, the first one is what we want, this on state enter. So when we enter this state, we want to pick a new random number before we finish playing this animation and loop back to the top, right? That makes sense. Make sure we know where we're going before we get there. So here, you'll notice that all of them are commented out. So all you have to do is uncomment out the on state enter line. And you only need to uncomment this line and then the two lines here that are the brackets. So it'll say override public void on state enter. It's already going to have a handle to the animator and to all this other stuff. We don't need all of that. We're just going to say animator.setFloat animation random. Remember when we set that up? mathf.round to random.range between 1 and 3. That's it. We're just saying, hey, go to this thing that we made called animation random and give it a random number between 1 and 3. And we're going to round up to a whole 1, 2, or 3 instead of 1.25872, whatever, right? That's it. Just picking a random number. So all this is saying is play all these animations and they all come to this point. And when they come to this point, when they enter, on state enter, when they enter this state, call this code, which comes here and says, pick a random number and go back to this thing, animation random, and tell it what the new number is. So it'll be 1, 2, or 3 to go down either one of these 3 paths. That's all there is to it. Pretty cool, right? That on its own is not enough, because if you do just that, they will all play the same animation every single time, sometimes, because they will all choose, 2 of them will choose 1. Great, that means they're going to play this animation at exactly the same moment. So the other thing that we did to try to add a little bit of offset to make sure it's a little bit more random is the second piece of code. So on each of the characters, you should have just 3 areas. The transform, which is their position in the world, the animator, and then our code here where you will apply the delay animation script. So I'll provide the scripts, don't worry. And in the scripts folder, this delay animation, all you have to do is click and drag and drop it here. It's not going to work here. Oh, it will work here. Let's put it twice. That's not good. So click and drag and drop, and you see it appears there. Let's take a look at what that's doing. Very simple. So we are playing with coroutines here. So if you're not familiar with coroutines, it's like you set it up in advance and it just runs, and you can call it and say, now go do this. So it's kind of like a function that's always running, but then you can call it at will. So on start here, we're going to say start coroutine small delay. Okay? Then we have IEnumerator small delay. That's how we define our coroutine. And what we're doing here is we're getting a temporary string, which is the name of our object, and we're getting the length minus 1. So we're just getting the last character of the string. And then we're saying make a float called weight this much, and we're going to convert that string into an actual number. So for example, if I get the number 1 as it's written, it's a string. It's like I wrote it. But now I want to say, what does this symbol mean? It means the value of 1. That's what we're doing right here, is saying now turn that written number 1 into a number 1 as far as we understand it to be a number. Then it's going to say call a function called wait for seconds and pass in that much. So 1 in this case. Then we're going to go into the animator, and remember that Boolean we said start playing, B start playing, we're going to set it true after we've waited a certain amount. Now you may notice that this is getting the name of the game object and then getting the last character and getting that as a number. So, well, wait a minute. That code is on player 1, player 2, player 3, player 4, right? So the name is player 4, so it's going to get this last number. So in theory, player 1 has a 1 second delay, player 2 has a 2 second, 3 has a 3 second, and 4 has a 4 second delay. And so that helps to offset them just a little bit. And we can mix and match that later. We can do some crazy math to say, pick a random number to multiply this by and divide by whatever. And you can get really complicated with it if you want to. But that helps to just offset them just a little bit so that they don't all play the same animation. And then if you can expand this So if you go to Mixamo here and just pick a whole bunch of these or something, right? And you can expand this, then you can have a really complicated animation tree here and pick numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever, right? And that's pretty easy to do because all you'd have to do is just change this to say between 1 and however many branches you have. So if you had 35 branches, you just do that, okay? So there you go. So you change those up, and once you've got that all set, you apply everything, then you have your nice menu here. And all these guys do is animate. So you see they're picking their random branches here. So if I come over here and choose player 1, let's take a look at player 1. See, he went down the first path. Player 2, where is he? He's in the middle path. Player 3, he's over here on the far right path. See, he's doing a different animation. Player 4, what's he doing? He's in the middle. He's going down the middle track. So then we can check these out, and you'll notice that they're not at the same, if you look here, they're not at the same place. As I go back and forth between these, they're all at different parts in their animation, which helps to kind of make them seem a little bit more believable. Even when they do that, when they play the same animation at the same time, that again would be helpful to be able to expand this. Now look here. We've chosen a new random number, which is 1. So now we go up, we're going to go this way. Let's go over to this guy. What's his random number? Was 2. See? You see that changing? 2, 2, 2, 1. Now, because we only have 1, 2, or 3, that's where you get some of the overlap, but you get the idea. Now you have a nice menu set up, random animated characters within certain limits, and we have the ability to now put our buttons and everything on the screen. We can start making the actual menu, but we have the visuals set up, and now we have a really impressive looking menu. You'll notice a little bit of slippage for the animations here, so we need to recenter some of that, and we'll work that out too as we go along. But the animations are set, and we have a beautiful looking scene, guys, without too much work. I mean, it's less than 30 lines of code and just a little bit of work with the animation, and there you go. You've made an awesome little scene. So thank you so much, guys, for all your time and patience. I apologize that we've had some delays. I've had a few family tragedies, and it's been tough getting back into it. But you guys inspire me. You're really helping me out to keep me enthused to do this. So thank you so much, and we've got a whole bunch of really cool stuff coming. I promise it's just around the corner. Math is hard. So we'll almost be there, and you're going to see an explosion of stuff on the channel, and we're just going to, the sky's the limit, guys. So if you have any questions, comments, please don't forget, in the description, check out the Discord, post a complete list of what you're doing. Make sure you follow all the instructions carefully. I do miss things from time to time, so I will admit I'm human, but please try to follow it all and do it in a new scene if you have trouble. If you still have trouble, check out the Discord. We're a community. We're here to help. Until next time, guys, keep practicing, get better, and I'll see you next time as the pilgrimage continues.